I'll be going over the Fnatic vs Origin game that happened on week 2 of LEC of Summer Split. And I think the series was really interesting, or well, this game was very interesting, mainly because of the Soraka pick. I think there's definitely some stuff to criticize from both sides, but overall the drafts were really solid. So starting it off, Fnatic ends up banning Kalista, Yuumi, and Aphelios. And I think all three of these bans are really good, which doesn't happen very often with most teams. Not with Fnatic in specific, but I see a lot of teams wasting bans on things that don't really make a lot of sense. But I think this time it actually makes a lot of sense. So Kalista is really oppressive in laning phase. If you want to be able to flex Soraka ADC, you'd be really scared of her. So it actually makes a lot of sense to ban her. And then just in general, she's a really strong character that can kind of take over the game. I personally don't think she's as good as people make her out to be, and their priority seems to be seems to be lowered compared to the first few weeks of, or the last weeks of Spring Split. So it kind of matches what I was saying. Then Yuumi, I think Yuumi is really good, especially into Soraka lanes. You're free to play stuff like Yuumi Sivir, which is really nuts if it gets going, or even Yuumi Twitch, which we saw in LCK, and it's completely broken. Like if you actually get the items, it's really good. Of course, like getting the laning phase to get the items is the hard part, but Soraka lanes would be one of the few where you can actually do that. So the Yuumi ban I think makes a lot of sense. Then the Aphelios ban I think it's actually really good too. And the main reason I say that is because Soraka team compositions usually have champions that want to outstat you, so stuff like Wukong and Jax. And those champions they have a hard time, or they have a hard time into Aphelios because of the way Aphelios likes to team fight. He really likes comps that go into him and don't really play from long range because he's really good. He has the Infernum ult, he has the chakrams when he's on close range. So those kinds of team compositions are really good into Aphelios. And then it's just Aphelios in general, the champion is really nuts, so it makes a lot of sense. On the other hand, Origin goes for the TF ban. I think the TF ban is fine, especially if you're gonna play a mid laner that just wants to sit on mid and just farm and have control over the lane and the area surrounding it. So TF would give access to the side lanes, and they probably don't want that, so it's really good. Varus ban is really good. The champion is completely nuts. Even after the nerfs, he's still really good. Then Syndra ban, I don't think it's necessary, but I think it's fine to ban her because she's really strong and she gives a lot of pressure. And if you want to play something more safe like Orianna or a Azir or something like that, or even a Kassadin, like a Syndra ban makes a lot of sense. So I like the Syndra ban. It just opens more possibilities, and it kind of hits Nemesis champion pool slightly. Fnatic ends up blocking the Graves. I think this is completely fine. The Graves is really strong right now. He doesn't really lose any jungle matchup, and he outpaces almost every jungler in the game, and he just is really good late game and is pretty good early to mid game too. So I think Graves is completely fine. And then Origin goes for Orianna and Ezreal, and I think Orianna usually, my first thought when I saw her was that it's kind of weird to be picking early, to be picking her this early into the draft. But I think it actually makes a lot of sense, especially if you consider that Origin might have some inside information because of scrims. If they're expecting Fnatic to pick Soraka, then Orianna is actually a really good pick to take away from Fnatic's team composition, because Orianna Soraka are just Orianna with Soraka, she not only makes everyone tankier, Orianna herself is really bulky, especially with the new build where you go Zeraf's Embrace and then either a defensive item or Liandry, so you get more HP. So Orianna Soraka makes it so it's really hard to kill the other members of your team and each other. So I think it's really good that they took it away, and it's also a really safe pick, especially especially with the TF and Syndra ban. What this does open, the Orianna does open a possibility of Soraka being played mid, because Soraka has a really easy time playing against her, and Soraka Graves is actually a really nuts 2v2. So there's that to look out for, but outside of that, I think Orianna is completely fine. And then Ezreal, I don't think I need to talk much about him. He's just really good. Then we go into Fnatic. They lock in the Soraka and they lock in Leona. The first time I saw the Leona pick, I thought it was weird. It doesn't really make a lot of sense, especially when you already know what the end product of this draft ends up being. But the more I thought about it, Leona in this position makes it so Ezreal can't just pick a scaling support. Like, well, there are some scaling supports like Morgana and Janna that can be played with, but I think stuff like Lulu, stuff like, what's another scaling support actually? I was mainly thinking of Lulu, but there's probably another one that I'm missing right now. Jen is actually fine. Lulu has a bit of trouble. She's not really terrible, but she has a bit of trouble into Leona. I'm actually blanking, I can't really think of another. I guess stuff like Zilean could be really good if Leona wasn't there. With Leona it becomes a bit harder to play, but I think he's still fine. Yeah, stuff like Nami would also be bad, though there's not really a reason to play her. Oh, stuff like Karma actually. Yeah, Karma is the big one. That's the one I was missing. Karma, Ezreal is really popular, and I think if you play Leona with an aggressive ADC, like Draven, which to be fair Reckless doesn't play Draven to my knowledge, but Draven Leona would really wreck a lot of Ezreal lanes, especially stuff like Karma Ezreal. So I think the Leona pick is actually quite fine. It's not the best option. Like I have this draft here. I think I'd much rather go for something like a Corki here. It rounds out the draft, and you give up the mid pick, or well, you're giving information on the mid pick super early. But I think it's really okay because there's not really Corki is really fine as a champion. There's nothing. Is really okay into everything that's being shown on Origin side, and he's really okay against stuff in general. Like if Origin decided to play poke, Corki can do that, and then you have Soraka to supplement healing your own team. And then if they decide to pick hard engage, Corki is okay against that. It's not that big of a deal. If they pick Trundle, Corki is okay against that. Like Corki is just really solid in general, and that's why we see it a lot, especially when he has a good lane matchup. And Orianna is completely fine for him, as far as I know. So I think Corki would be very good. Another option would be to just go a top laner like Ornn or Maokai, or well, I'd say Malphite, but I think Malphite this early isn't that good. So Ornn is probably the most popular one. I think it'd be completely fine. And then yeah, I think those are like the two best options. If you want to play DC, you just leave it later, leave it for later. So yeah, but they end up going for the Leona, which I don't think it's terrible. It doesn't really ruin their draft or anything. I think it's okay, but there's probably better options as a third pick on blue side. And then Origin goes for the Thresh, and the Thresh, I think Thresh is really good in this situation. Maybe more than, like, in general I don't really like Thresh, not because the champion is bad or anything, but it's like the champion doesn't I think the champion doesn't really do a lot in a lot of the time. Like unless you want to play aggressive in lane, the thing about Thresh is that she's not the best at anything, right? She's just really good in general, or well, not she, he. I don't know why I keep saying she, but yeah, Thresh is not the best at anything, but he's just a solid pick, and I really like it in this situation because it makes it so it's a lot harder to abuse the Ezreal lane, just because Thresh himself has a lot of lane potency, even if it's defensively. So you can't just, well, you could still, there's still some options like Fnatic could go Draven, Leona, as I said before, and it would completely ruin the trash Ezreal lane a lot of the time. It's not as, I don't think it's as favored as like Ezreal Lulu against Draven Leona, but it's still really favored for Draven in my opinion. But Reckless doesn't play Draven, so they don't need to be worried about that. Other things that Fnatic could play bot lane outside of the Soraka, they could be playing Kai'Sa. I think Kai'Sa against these three champions is really good, and you'll have the information of the fourth champion before picking her. So Kai'Sa could be potentially really good. And then I think there's not much more than that for ADCs. Yeah, I don't think there's a lot. You could just play a standard ADC, like Ashe is completely fine in this position. She doesn't really hate what she's playing against, but you still don't know. Like if they go Malphite R5 and they go I don't know, like Olaf, like Ashe suddenly becomes a lot less good. And I think the same thing happens to a lot of the ADCs. So outside of Draven and Kai'Sa, I don't really see a lot of ADCs being super good in this situation. Ezreal would be good, but obviously it's picked already. So yeah, they end up going for a trash, which is completely fine in my opinion. They ban the Azir. Now I think the Azir ban is interesting because whatever Azir does, I believe it's a lot better. It's done a lot better by Corki. And maybe they're afraid because okay, so the first thing is Origin's team composition right now isn't forced to go into Fnatic's. Fnatic's team composition, from what they're showing the Leona, they're showing the Graves, they're showing champions that really want to go into you, and on the other hand, Origin is showing a lot of versatility because they can still pick champions that can just poke and or they can even side lane and just play it from afar. Even though it wouldn't ever be as strong as like Ezreal Zoe, it would still be pretty decent. Because Orianna has a lot of zone control when people are trying to come into you, and Ezreal is really slippery. Is also really tanky with the Death Dance build. So I don't think the Azir ban is good. I'd much rather see a Corki ban if it was to be a ban between those two. But I guess Azir in general isn't terrible. Is a champion that you need to watch out for if he scales too hard. Trundle ban and Volibear ban. I think the Trundle ban is completely fine. Probably what Fnatic is thinking is if Trundle just ults the champion that goes in and then they blow it up, we can't really abuse Soraka healing. So, and not only that, Trundle is also one of the few champions that has like early game fighting potential against Graves. And then the Trundle pillar is also really good against Soraka and a few other champions. It is okay against Graves. Not amazing, but it's okay. It's pretty okay against Leona too. So I think the Trundle ban makes sense. The Volibear ban, I think it's... I have mixed feelings about it. On one hand, I don't think Volibear is good enough to just be blind pickable, which he hasn't been. So that's the first worry out of the way. And on the other hand, Volibear is really good into Soraka team comps if he can get a favorable lane matchup. And Origin does have the last pick, so I think Fnatic might be worried about that because Volibear can just tank forever. Like if Fnatic doesn't have a, let's imagine that Soraka is ADC, and then their mid laner is like a low a low damage mid laner, like what's a good example? I'd say it's Cannon mid. It's Cannon mid and it's Soraka ADC and who's their top one? Let's say it's Wukong, which it actually is. Like Volibear isn't afraid of this. This team can't kill him fast enough. It's really hard for Volibear to die once he gets to 2 items, especially with the Orianna and the trash doesn't really help a lot, but it helps buying time sometimes. So I think the Volibear ban is actually pretty decent, even though it doesn't seem like it at first. Then Origin bans Gangplank, which I think is completely fine. Origin picks Sett, and the only thing I like about Sett is that he can be flex top or jungle, but I don't think his jungle is that good, and it's very likely that he's going jungle anyways. So I think if you're picking Sett jungle, you'd much rather have Olaf. With that said, Sett has some disengage. Well, disengage is not the word. It's like he can sacrifice himself to put away a member from the enemy team. So like if Leon is trying to engage, he can just ult her away, and then he can create a lot of space for Orianna and Ezreal to do their stuff. So while I don't think Sett is that good early game, I guess he has some value later on into the game, depending on what Fnatic picks. And so far what Fnatic is showing, like at the moment Sett is picked, so they're showing the Leona and the Graves. I think Sett is pretty decent into those, so the pick isn't terrible. There's probably better options, but I can't really think about them right now. I think Olaf is just better overall as a jungler, but he has less utility later, so there's that. And then the other option I was thinking about is Jarvan, but I think Jarvan gets really bullied by Graves early game, while Sett doesn't suffer as much. So probably Sett might be actually the best pick here, outside of a farming jungler. Let's think about it. Let's think about that actually. So some of the farming junglers here could be Karthus. You don't know the mid laner, so you probably don't want to do that yet, and you don't want to pick top because you want the counter pick, so Karthus is out of the way. You also already have a lot of magic damage, so it's bad. The same thing is for Gragas. You already have too much magic damage. Jarvan is worse than Sett. Kayn gets bullied. I think Maokai is actually fine, but a lot of people don't play Maokai jungle, so I am not really expecting that kind of pick coming true. Pantheon is okay, but Sett kind of accomplishes the same thing while having slightly more utility later down the line. And if you already have enough damage, I don't think there's a reason to pick Pantheon over Sett. Although there's some situations because of the global pressure and everything. Yeah, I don't think there's a lot of better options than Sett, so they end up going for the Sett, which is better than I initially thought. Then Fnatic answers with Echo and Wukong, and I think this is like the really big blunder from Fnatic. The Wukong, I think it's fine. He can survive most matchups. He has some bad matchups, but the champion is just really good in general. He's really bulky too, so he goes well with Soraka. And he can really disrupt backline. And he's kind of sticky for a moment, like when he tries to engage for like 2 or 3 seconds is really sticky. So Ezreal has slightly like Ezreal doesn't really have a lot of trouble, but he needs to watch out for it. It's not as simple as like just eing out of a Sett engage or something like that, because Wukong can actually chase him for a little bit, although not for very long. And then the Echo, I think Echo is really bad. And I think the Echo is the main reason Fnatic ends up losing this game. Not because of the way Nemesis plays, but because of the champion that they drafted. My issue with Echo is that it doesn't have a super good lane into Orianna, which is not an issue in itself. It's like it's fine if you just want to scale. But you don't have a really good lane into Orianna, and then when you get your items, you can't really kill anyone. Because the way Echo works is that he uses his cooldowns, he tries to blow someone up, and then he gets away from them. And while that is true a lot of the time, you can't really do that against any of the champions that are shown. Like you can't do that against Sett. You can't do that against Ezreal because he has a really easy time building into a magic resist while still getting armor. So Death Stance, excuse me. So Ezreal can just get Mercury Treads and Death Stance, and suddenly Echo has like 70 magic resist extra that he needs to go through, and he can't really kill Ezreal like that. Adding to that, Orianna still has shields, and then Orianna goes she's been going the build where you go Seraph's Embrace and Liandry's, and she becomes really tanky with that build because you get 300 HP from Zeraph's, not Zeraph's, Liandry's, and then you get around 300, 400 shield from Zerefs. Sometimes it's less, it depends on how much mana you have, but it's still a lot, like in general. So Orianna is really bulky, and she can't really be killed by Echo because she just goes into Merc Treads against this kind of team composition. Sett, I don't think I even need to talk about him. Like, if you're one-shotting the trash, then I mean, I don't think Origin really cares, and you can't really one-shot trash that easily. So yeah, I think the Echo is really bad. I'd much rather see a Corki here, or even like Corki. I think would be really good in B3 because you don't know a lot of stuff that's going on. But when you know like these 4 champions, I think you can even go Cassiopeia. Like Cassiopeia is completely fine here, I think. The Soraka makes it really annoying to play into the Cassiopeia, and you have a lot of zone control. She can follow up on Graves and Wukong's engage, or well, I should say Leona and Wukong's engage. Graves isn't really. Graves is also falling up with her, and then like playing against Soraka, Graves W, Cassiopeia W. It's really annoying for this kind of team composition if they ever want to go in, because what might happen is that Leona engages on Ezreal. The Sett ults Leona away, and then there's a Soraka E, or well, Soraka E usually is saved. There's a Graves W, making it so I'll give you as an example here on Drake. So let's imagine that they're playing here, and like the Leona goes in on the Ezreal, and then the Sett brings her back to the team fight, and then there's going to be is there a pen here? Yeah, there's going to be a space here with Graves W and Cassiopeia W, and it's really hard to follow on that. So it's really hard to play against Cassiopeia, I think, with this kind of composition. With that said, that doesn't mean it's like it's unbeatable or anything. Wait, how do I? I've never used this before. How do I fix this? How do I not use the pen? Ah, shit. Okay, F5. Okay, we're good. Ah, shit, I lost all my picks. Okay, whatever. I'll just watch from here. And then Origin ends up going for the Malphite, and I think Malphite is actually really good. If Fnatic had the Cassiopeia mid, the Malphite pick would actually make it a lot harder to play her, because you have a lot more access to the backline suddenly. With that said, the Corki is still really good in my opinion. Another pick I actually didn't talk about is Cho'Gath mid. Cho'Gath mid is really an orthodox pick in competitive. He's not really played. The AP variant specifically with Glacial Augment. We've seen him a couple of times being played top, but we never see him mid. And I think against this team comp, Glacial Augment Cho'Gath mid is actually really good. It goes really well with the Soraka because it's so bulky and it does so much damage. The Glacial Augment makes it so following up for Graves and Wukong becomes a lot easier. And like the Leona engages, like try to imagine this. A Leona engage followed by a Glacial Augment that just slows everyone on the enemy team. Like Ezreal is gonna get away because it's Ezreal, but everyone else has really bad time against it. So I think Cho'Gath mid would be pretty decent in this spot. I'm not sure if it would be like the best pick. I think going for something like Corki or Cassiopeia is just safer in general. But I think there's definitely situations where it's worth thinking about. So yeah, that concludes my draft analysis for the Origin versus Fnatic game. Before actually finishing the video, I just want to say that while I may disagree with some of the picks, obviously the teams have inside knowledge and they have the scrims and everything, so they probably know better than what I'm saying. I'm just really trying to look at what I'm seeing and try to see if there were better options. Because even though the teams are really good, I don't believe they always have the better options, and a lot of the times pro players are scared of trying different things or just don't think about them on the spot. So yeah, that's everything. Thanks for watching.